Hello everyone, welcome to the first biology video of class of 2023 at Georgetown Prep. In case you didn't know, we have a quiz tomorrow on Friday the 30th of August, and I gave out a review sheet that you can use to fill out some questions. If you were not in class today, if you missed the last period of today, you can find this worksheet online. It's already posted on Veracross. So let's go over some of the material that we went over in class today so that you'll know exactly what's on the quiz tomorrow and you won't get behind. Starting with the characteristics of life. So we are going to be talking about characteristics of life as well as the metric system. However, only the characteristics of life part is going to be on the quiz tomorrow, along with scientific method. The metric system, you should still learn it, watch the video, learn how to do it. It's on the test next week. But get the entire video watched tonight. Okay, so we're going to first do a practice of the scientific method. Right here is a practice that you can do at home. Think about this hypothesis. If a brand name light bulb is left on, then it will burn longer than a bargain brand light bulb. In this hypothesis, what is your independent variable? What is your dependent variable? What is the control group and what is the experimental group? Pause the video, think about it, and then I'll tell you the answer. See if we're matching our answers. All right, you're back. So our independent variable should be the brand of the light bulb, whether it's bargain brand or a brand name light bulb. And our dependent variable, which is the effect, should be how long the light bulb can be burned. And then our control group should be the bargain brand light bulb, because that's not the one we're trying to test. We're trying to test the brand name light bulb, right? So we're using the bargain brand as a control group. And then our experimental group should be the brand name light bulb. Continuing on, so there are 6 characteristics of living things that you should know about. You can write this next 6 things on 6 characters on the back of your lab note sheet that you used on Wednesday in class. So the one that we used for exploring characteristics of living things, in the back there's place for you to take notes. So starting with the first one. Number 1, living things are made up of cells. You can pause the video and take notes whenever you can, okay? Number 1. Number 2 is living things obtain and use materials and energy, such as this guy right here. He obviously has a lot of energy. And you can also think about how you need to eat food and obtain the energy, and you can use the energy. And for example, right here, leaves obtain energy from the sun and gases in the air. The third one is living things grow and reproduce. There's sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Just to put it out there, you don't have to write about it, you don't have to know about it just yet. Number 4, living things respond to their environment. So right here we have some sunflowers, and these sunflowers are really good at responding to the environment. They're able to quote unquote recognize, but they're not really thinking about it, but the cells within the sunflowers will allow the sunflowers to go to face toward where there's the most amount of sunlight. And there's a lot that you do to respond to the environment, right? Every single second you're responding. You hear your name, you turn your head. You hear your name, even if you're not turning your head, your brain is going to respond, right? I don't know, somebody punch you in the face. Please, no, nobody punches you in the face. But if somebody were to punch you in the face, you will go, ouch, and you will start hurting, and that's responding to the environment. And you might punch them back. Don't do any of that, please. Don't do it. But there are ways that you can respond to the environment, right? Such as avoiding a conflict so you won't get punched in the face. This has gone too far. All right, number 5. Living things maintain a stable internal environment. You can also call a stable internal environment homeostasis. So instead of saying living things maintain a stable internal environment, if you say maintain homeostasis, that also works. In this case, we can come up with some examples, such as body temperature, right? Every single living thing needs every single multicellular organism usually needs, sorry about this, usually needs some sort of body temperature. So whether you're warm-blooded or you're cold-blooded, you need a certain body temperature for the cells in your body to function. Other examples, you also need a certain blood pressure. You need a certain blood sugar level. You need a certain heartbeat. you need a certain amount of liquid within your cells. You need a certain amount of salt and mineral within your cells and your body as well. So those are all internal environment. How about water level? We need to maintain the amount of water we have in our body as well, right? So all of these are examples of maintaining homeostasis or a stable internal environment, and every single living thing does this. Next one. Living things, did I miss one? No. The next one is living things have a universal genetic code. So universal genetic code means all living things are made out of DNA. And even more interesting than that is we are all made out of DNA, and all the building blocks for our DNA is the same as well. So what that means is my DNA is very different from my rabbit's. That's why I'm not a rabbit and my rabbit is not me, right? That's what makes us very different. However, the building blocks of our DNA, the basic building structure for our DNA is exactly the same. And it's even the same as the bacteria. So all living things have the same building block of DNA. Similarly, proteins are also made out of the same kind of building blocks. So even though I would have proteins that my body can produce that a plant cannot, and plants can produce certain proteins that my body cannot, all our proteins are made out of the same kind of building block, but the proteins might not necessarily be the same. So this idea is similar to actual buildings, right? You can look at all the buildings around the city, and they could all look very different from each other, but they might be all made out of the same kind of building block, such as bricks. So the idea is we're all made out of bricks. You're not. The buildings are, but it's the same idea. So again, here are the 6 characteristics of living things. These are on the quiz tomorrow. These are on the test next week. These are on the midterm. Make sure you get these down. Just kind of remember it and think about, why are we talking about this, right? If you look at I don't know, a plant at your house. The plants are made out of cells. They're absorbing energy from sunlight, right? They grow. Plants obviously grow bigger. They can reproduce. Plants can have seeds and get new plants. They can respond to the environment. For example, if you have a house plant, the plant can grow toward they can and they will grow toward the window because that's where they can get more sunlight. They can maintain homeostasis. For example, if you don't water your plant is not going to survive for very long because they need a certain amount of water level within the body of the plant. And then they have a universal genetic code, just as you and I. All right, next one. Not really sure. Oh, there we go. The next one is the metric system. So this part, you still need to learn about it if you were not in class today. Or if you were in class today and you want a little review, this works as well. So the metric system, there are four units that you need to know about. Meter, whenever you're measuring length. Grams, whenever you're measuring mass. Liter, whenever you're measuring volume. And Celsius for temperature. So you should know that meter, gram, liter, and Celsius, these are the 4 most basic units that you need to know about. You need to know what meter is about, right? Meter is for length, not volume, not temperature. Liter is for mass and not length. Oh, liter is for volume and not mass or length, right? You should also know that for every single one of these units, you can also convert it into a larger kind of unit or a smaller kind of unit. For example, you can look at a meter stick, but on that 1 meter stick, there are 100 centimeters being marked, right? So meter is a larger unit than centimeter, and if you're measuring something smaller, such as the width of this film, for example, then it would be better if you were to use the unit centimeter rather than using meter. Same idea for mass, volume, and temperature. So now, because there are different sizes of each of the unit, you have bigger units and you have smaller units. You need to be able to do something called unit conversion, where if I were to give you kilometer, for example, you need to be able to convert that to meter. So one way to remember the scales of each one of these units is by memorizing King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. The word in the middle is called unexpectedly. The U can stand for unit, or usually the normal kind of unit. Those will be your meter, liter, and gram. And then every time you move up the scale, you are looking at a unit that's 10 times bigger than the one before it. So if you're looking at deca, for example, deca is 10 times bigger. Decameter is 10 times bigger than regular meter. Hectometer is 10 times bigger than decameter, but hectometer is 100 times bigger than meter. Kilometer is 1,000 times bigger than meter, but 1 kilometer is only 10 times larger than 1 hectometer, and 1 kilometer is 100 times bigger than a decameter. The opposite is true for units on this side. So if you were to have a deci, right? If you have a decimeter, then a decimeter is 10 times smaller than a regular meter. A centimeter is 100 times smaller than a regular meter. A centimeter is 10 times smaller than a decimeter, and a millimeter is 1,000 times smaller than a regular meter. Okay? So I hope this all makes sense. If it doesn't, please see me on Friday morning before school. Please send me an email before you come so I know you're going to be here. So there are two ways that you can do unit conversion. One way is on the notes, there are stairs. So instead of having these units on one line, we're going down the stairs. And if you're going down the stair once, that means you need to move the decimal to the right one time. But if you're moving down the stairs 3 times, then you need to move the decimal to the right 3 times. So for example, if you're going from deca to centi, you're going down the scale 1, 2, 3 times. That means you need to move your decimal to the right 3 times. But I told everyone in class that there's a very important message from me that you need to remember. It's called big unit, small number, or the opposite, small unit, big number. So how does that work? If you look at the whiteboard over here, I hope your screen is big enough so you can see it. If we were to use 3,000 kilometer, and we're trying to figure out how many meters that is, you would know that kilometer is a large unit, and a large unit should always be paired up with a smaller number. And right here, meter is a small unit. Because you're using a smaller unit, you have to use a larger number, right? If you're using a larger number, you have to move the decimal to the right. So if you're looking at kilometer and meter, there are 3 steps. Kilometer is 3 steps larger than meter. So kilometer is 1,000 times bigger than meter, which means we need to move our decimal to the right 3 times. So the result is 3,000,000 meters. Okay, I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, make sure you do come to see me. Do come to see me tomorrow before school because this is going to be on next week's test and you don't want to miss out too much. Let's do another example. 0.002 meters. Let's do 0.002 kilometer, I guess. And then we could do how many meters is that? Again, kilometer is a larger unit. Meter is a smaller unit. Small unit, large number. So we have to make this number bigger by moving the decimal to the right 3 times. So the answer is 2. But what if we have 0.00, let's do 0.3 centimeter. And we're going to convert that into decimeter. Decimeter is 10 times bigger than centimeter. Big number, big unit, small number, so we have to move the decimal to the left 1 time. So the result will be 0.03. Okay? Take a look at this. I hope you can see this just fine. All right. On your notes, there are 4 practices right here. So these 4 practices, make sure you do it right now. Pause the video, do it, and then I'll tell you the answers. Okay, you paused? All right, 10 centimeter. We're doing the same thing, right? The reason why I'm telling you about this big number, big unit, small number, small unit, big number situation is so that no matter how confident you are with doing this kind of problems, just use this as a rule. This is how you would know, right? This is like saying, if you're driving a car, you will not drive 3 centimeters. That will not happen because a car is going to drive a long distance, and 3 centimeters simply doesn't make sense. The big unit, small number situation is the same thing, right? If you're using a big unit to describe something, you have to have a smaller number because that would make sense. All right, so right here we have 10 centimeter. Centimeter is 100 times smaller of a unit compared to meter, so meter is a bigger unit. Big unit, small number, we move the decimal to the left 2 times, and the result will be 0.1, 0.1, okay? The next one is 1 centimeter to millimeter. Millimeter is a smaller unit. Centimeter is a bigger unit. The difference is 10 times. So small unit, big number. The decimal is originally here. We move it 1 time. So this number will be 10. Now we have 5 meters to kilometer. Kilometer is a large unit, so we need a small number. And the difference is 1,000 times, or 3 steps. So we're going to move the decimal. Whoops. We're going to move the decimal from right here to 1, 2, 3, 0.005 kilometer. Okay, and then kilometer to meter, we have the difference is 3 steps as well, so 1,000. This is a small unit. You will have a large number, so the result will be you need to move your decimal to the right 3 times, so the result will be 3,500, 3,500 meters. Okay. All right, next one. The next one is called the scientific notation. A lot of the times, scientists will use really large numbers or really small numbers because they're simply some really small things. For example, if you're measuring the diameter of a cell, that's a very, very small thing that you're measuring, right? So the number that you come up with might be really, really small. Or if you're measuring the weight of a cell. But if you are measuring something really large, such as the circumference of Earth, that would be a really large number. But in order for us to see the numbers better, and it won't take up an entire page of zeros, we use something called the scientific notation. Here's how I do the scientific notation. I find the first non-zero number first. I put an imaginary decimal after that number. And then I figure out how many times I need to move the imaginary decimal to the actual decimal. So this is how this works. We have this number. I'm going to write it on the board. All right, as you can see, there are a lot of zeros. This is a pretty large number. I find the first number, which is 3. I can really put my decimal anywhere, but I want to put it right here. I can put it before it too, but 3.25 looks good to me. Okay, so my imaginary decimal is right here. Now it's still a large number, but there's an imaginary decimal. I'm making it nice and big. And then I'm going to put a small decimal right here. That's the actual decimal, right? Because this is a whole number. There is no actual decimal points, so the decimal goes right here. Now I want to see how many times do I need to move my imaginary decimal to the actual decimal. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? So the result is 3.25, because that's where our imaginary our imagination now is coming true. 3.25 times 10 to the however many times you move the decimal, which is, I think it was 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? If you want to do 0.325 times 10 to the 10th, that's fine too, but this will be the preferred form. Okay? Here's something important. When you're looking at a number that's larger than, well, all of this is important, but if you're looking at a number that's larger than 1 with a lot of zeros behind the numbers, then you want to use 10 to a positive superscript number. Okay? However, if you're looking at a really, really small number, all right, guys, so we got to this point. Now we're going to look at a number that's really, really small. By that I mean really, really small. Smaller than 1, kind of small. And when we look at a number like that, we will have a superscript above 10 that is a negative number. So for example, what we have right here is 0.000004. And when we're looking at this number, there are a lot of zeros. And counting those zeros is not the most exciting thing in life. So we're going to turn it into scientific notation. We are going to put an imaginary decimal right here next to the 4. And we're going to see how many times we need to move this decimal in order to get to the actual decimal. So we're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The answer is 4 times 10 to the negative 7, right? I hope that makes sense. Now let's take a look at some of the other examples that's on your paper. We have this number, 0043, 0.0043. When we look at this number, it's smaller than 1, so we're going to have a 10 to the negative something. We're going to put an imaginary decimal next to the first non-zero number that we see, which is 4. So we start with right here. We see 1, 2, 3. 4.3 times 10 to the negative 3 should be your final answer, okay? I'm going to give you one more practice so that you'll be as ready as you can next week. How about, let's just do 1 with a bunch of zeros. One more. Okay, so we have a number right here. We find the first non-zero number, which is 1. We put an imaginary decimal right here next to 1, and we see how many times it needs to move in order to get to the actual decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 times 10 to the 8th. Right? We can do one more. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. 3. Actual decimal, imaginary decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 times 10 to the negative 6. All right, I hope this makes sense. Lastly, when you're giving a scientific notation, you should also be able to turn that into a regular number, a regular notation, okay? So, for example, on your paper, you should have 2 times 10 to the 9th. And you want to see how this will be expressed with a bunch of zeros. So you write down 2, you find your actual decimal, and then you're going to move that 9 times to the right because we have a really large number with a positive number right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we fill in the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, this should be easy enough. Let's try a smaller number. How about 4 times 10 to the negative 3? We have 4. We have our actual decimal. I'm going to move it to the left because we have a smaller number. We're going to move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 0.004. And you can check it back and forth too. If you want to turn this into scientific notation, you will have your imaginary decimal. It has to move 1, 2, 3 times to the left. So if you're turning this number to scientific notation, that will also be 10 to the negative 3. Okay? So that's all for today. Hopefully you understood what I talked about, and I'll see you tomorrow.